I'm the music god CJ playing. This is the Noize Report. You know what we do here? We laugh, we have fun, we interview cool and interesting people, or pretty much anyone that I can con into coming on this shit show that I call a podcast. But today, this is bucket list shit here. Like, you hear me talk about these guys all of the time. Like, every hip hop show, every hip hop themed thing that I've ever done, whether it's my show or any other show, if I'm ever asked who my top 5 all time are, this guy comes up, his group comes up. This is Sicknature. And you've heard me talk about the Snow Goons. This dude is part of the Snow Goons. So it's 5 o'clock in the morning and we're on some goon shit. So how are you today?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And you to get up so early, that's dope, man.
Hey, thank you for doing this, bro. Like I said, this is bucket list. Like, this is, I know.
I appreciate it. I think that's dope, and like I'm happy to talk about. I'm happy to just shoot the shit. I don't do that many, so I'm happy to be here, man. I appreciate it.
Anyone who has seen the show knows I'm kind of infamous for 2 things. One, I talk about how I'm not a fan of Eminem. I respect M, but I don't connect to his music. Okay. Now, Royce, on the other hand, all day long. Like, I am a massive Royce fan. The other thing I'm infamous for saying is, in the hierarchy of hip hop production, there are 2 names that matter to me. One is Snow Goons, the other is Apollo Brown.
Oh,
and being a Detroit guy, you gotta show respect to Apollo, but
yeah,
you guys just are on a whole different thing, man. Like, your production that you do, it's so massive, dude, and it's so different. Like, I don't even know how to describe it to people. Like, it's like if you took like some horror movie shit and then mixed it with everything else, man. It's so bombastic and dude, it's fucking nuts. Like,
man, appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're just doing our thing, being inspired by the music we grew up listening to in the 90s, and trying to make our own sound from that, but still keeping like parts of the elements that we really loved about the 90s hip hop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just, we're just fans. We're basically just hip hop fans,
Yeah, that's obvious, man. Now you have a new record that's a solo. It's called Paintings of a Withering Forest.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start off right out of the gate.
Okay. Let's go.
Plastic Sun might be the craziest production that I think I've heard you do yet, dude. Like, that fucking beat is just, dude, that horn over that fucking piano is just, it's stupid. And I sit in my car, like, I literally sit in my driveway and I just fucking play that song over and over. And my mom's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Just listening to music." And she's like, "Why are you listening to it in the car?" Because the car has better speakers and it sounds better. Like, it's just, I have both speakers in the car, but I only have like this shitty little, computer speakers right now.
Okay.
So I go out to the car because it's just so much bigger, and it sounds nuts, dude. Like, the whole record does, but that song in particular, I mean,
thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. Funny thing about Plastic Sun is actually it's one of the first songs that I actually did on that album, and the beat was a whole nother beat in the beginning. So I used another beat, and then I felt like there was something missing. The beat was it was a little bit more dark than this one, because
Mhm.
this one is very, it's very heavy, but it's also, it has some positivity in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's slightly positive. And the other beat that I used in the beginning was more dark. You know, it was way more dark. It was also heavy, but not in the same way. And I kind of felt like, because that record is very much, you know, it's kind of looking at like the song in itself, like the lyrics are about looking at your surroundings and finding out like what's not healthy for you. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so I kind of felt like that was still like a positive angle to the darkness. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like there was to have like some kind of positivity, positive elements in the music was kind of like giving some sort of hope that, I mean, there is, you're not lost in the darkness. You can still find a way to not deal with the bullshit, you know. So I changed the beat, and I'm glad I did. You know, I definitely like the new beat more. So I'm glad you say that. And
Yeah,
by the
like
way, I listen to music in my car too. It just, there's something about it, man. Like
yeah. Like I'm the neighbors, we only have like one neighbor on our block
okay.
because we have this it's this awesome city, but unfortunately the people in charge of running it are complete fucking morons.
Oh,
So we have this we're over by the hospital. So
oh,
the hospital is trying to buy up all of the empty lots for parking lot space.
mm,
But there are those of us that won't sell because fuck the hospital, like you've already got like 10,000 parking spaces. You don't need more. So um we have a bunch of empty spaces, but the neighbors down the street, every time I go by it, they're always like, "What are you listening to today?" And it's always something different, whether it's Bob Seger or whether it's Snow Goons or whether it's Royce to 5'9" or whether it's Slayer or Vinnie Paz or Nems. Um, the neighbors kind of get turned on to a bunch of music because I'm eclectic and I'm all over the fucking place with my music. And I get a kick out of it as much as they do, I think. Because they're an older black couple. So,
right.
it's I kind of do it just to be cocky, but at the same time, I love turning people on to new music. That's why I do this.
That's
So,
dope. That's what's up, man.
um,
Old school way.
yeah,
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
record, for those of you that have not heard this record that are listening, it is full of some of the best storytelling I've ever heard this guy do, and that I've heard on any of the Snow Goons records. Street Dance Records is just that massive boombastic type, old boom bap style. Um, you have a nonfiction story. You have uh, Lonely Den, which is another song that is just almost nuclear in nature, for lack of a better term, with a super crazy story to it.
Mhm.
Um, this is hands down one of the best hip hop records I've heard in the past probably 5 to 10 years.
Big
And
word. Thank you. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
like I I don't use that lightly. Like there
Mm.
are certain hip hop records, man, that have really stood out to me over that time. And I've heard your other stuff, and it's great.
Thank you.
But I wouldn't say, but this record, man, it's like a huge step, bro. Like it's so much bigger, so much more bombastic. So the storytelling is just it's next level for anything you've done.
Yes.
So,
I
you know,
appreciate. I appreciate that, man. It's also probably my most personal record so far.
yeah.
I'm really happy you say that. I also feel like if I look at my catalog, I definitely like this album the most. But it's
Mhm.
also, I think it's also a little bit because of the fact that it's kind of different from everything else dropping nowadays. You know,
Mhm.
it still has those key hip hop elements to it, but it's also very melodic, and the stories are different. I've never actually heard anybody do almost like fairy tales based on
Hmm.
true like this before. And that's, that to me was kind of like something that I you know it, it's something that I more or less invented by mistake, by just
Yeah.
having like ideas thrown around, and then all of a sudden it turned into this. And it's but yeah, it took a while to do too. Like, I went through a crazy period of my life. This is While I made this album, it's been the toughest period of my life ever. There's just been so much crazy stuff going on, you know what I mean, in my personal life. So and I kind of feel like some of that reflected in some of the songs. And you know so I'm very happy you say that, man. Like, it's definitely my favorite from my catalog too. But yeah, yeah. And Lonely Den is a true story. It's a true story turned into a fairy tale, you
Yeah.
know because I wanted to tell it from a little boy's perspective. And it kind of made sense to do it like that, to kind
Yeah.
of not make it too difficult to understand. Like, it's very simple language. You know what I mean? It's not like crazy metaphors or anything. It's just very, very storytelling. And it kind of gives you like the perspective, like from a little kid seeing these things happen to his parents.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was a big thing, a big deal for me to do that. And it took some courage
Yeah.
to you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, I think that overall, I think there's some songs that I hope that people can relate to in a way, because I like the whole idea behind this album, like Paintings of a Withering Forest, is more or less, if you want to translate it into something simple, it's more like it kind of more or less means songs of the past that that taught you something, if you will.
Hmm.
Like, um so everything dies
Yeah.
out, everything changes, and new things come, you know what I mean. And I don't think that this album is for young partying people. This is
Hmm.
for like a mature crowd that has been through life and dealt with different
Yeah.
stuff, that can relate to some of these things, you know what I mean. There's not a lot of partying going on here. It's definitely, you know stories from my life, like turned into songs, trying to be creative in a creative way, you know what I mean. Like, so if
Yeah.
you want to start with a few good paintings, it's about how self-doubt and alcoholism and stuff like that was holding me back from being a creative, you know what I mean. But I won it over. I'm sober now. And it helped me, get this energy to create what I wanted to do more. And
Yeah.
that's what the album starts out with. That's basically explaining why I'm here and why I'm doing this album, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then Dynamite Harry is more like a Spitfire thing, is in like
Hmm.
believe in myself. You know, I didn't do a lot of songs. Now I believe in myself more, do more stuff. And then you go into like songs like Plastic Sun, which is a little bit deeper. It's more like you know, trying to, telling people to focus on what's healthy for them. You know what I mean? We're
Hmm.
constantly bombarded by um, you know,
Yeah.
ideas, commercials, ads, everything, trying to tell us what we should do in order to be happy or whatever. And people are constantly looking for some kind of happiness, and that they can't find. And and maybe it's just because like whatever they're picking up and believing in is not healthy for them. You know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
got to on the inside. And Street Dance Records was actually a song about a store called
Hmm.
Street Dance Records. Like, that was located in Copenhagen, where I went to as a kid. Every time,
Nice.
every time I felt like things were getting too heavy at home, or you know, like I explained in the song, at school, it bucking me out at the time. You know what I mean? I was a
Hmm.
teenager at that time. And so I went it was a 30-minute train ride from where I live to the center of Copenhagen, and I went to Street Dance Records because they had like these turntables. I think I have like 4 or 5 of them, and you could listen to whatever record you wanted. And they had the newest imported hip hop from the
Yeah.
States. So every time, I mean, the internet was not popping like that back then.
Right.
So if you wanted to know what was going on in hip hop, you went
Yeah.
to Street Records or something like that. You know what I mean? To figure out like what's out now, and and then you
Those
could
are
listen to it before you bought it. And basically, I spent all my pocket money on vinyls, but that's another story. So, but yeah, that's Street Dance, right? I mean, and then we dive into Little Mermaids. Little Mermaids is
yeah.
about you know what I mean? It's about insecurities of society. I call it Little Mermaids, but it could be Little Mermen. It's not like necessarily
Right.
because it's women in the song. It could be guys too. It's just basically like us being bombarded with the idea of what an ideal human being is all the time. You know what I mean? Instead of just
Mhm.
being ourselves, and then it becomes too much, and you drown in all that confusion about who you really are, instead of just embracing your flaws. And we can't be everything at the same time. And that's something you learn as you get older too. Like I think when you're young, you're very busy trying to be something you might not be, and then as you get older, you realize, okay, I can do this, but I can't do that. You get to know your strengths, and you get to accept. You know what I mean? If you lose your hair, that's cool. I did. You know what I'm saying? Like, but when I
I'm
was
just
younger,
I'm just the opposite. I still got a whole shit ton of it, but it's
I would have like that type of haircut if I had like hair, man. That's dope.
I
Uh,
dude, I went through a horrific divorce like 2 years ago.
mm,
And after 15 years, the wife decided to run off with some fuckboy and
oh,
abandoned me and our son. And
oh, sorry to
I
hear that.
had short hair for years and years, and I just was like, fuck it, I'm gonna grow my hair because my family comes from Norway originally.
Okay.
And we have the Viking heritage, and I'm just like, fuck it, I'm gonna go full Viking, bro. Like the beard, the hair, everything. And every chance she gets, like, we have a court hearing or anything, that's the first thing your hair looks like shit. Yeah, well, I don't know why you worry about it. It ain't your business no more, so fuck off. But it's I the song Lonely Den,
Yeah.
I related to that kind of on a different level because of
Okay.
the divorce.
Okay.
It's made me hyper aware of how my son feels. His
Mm,
mom refusing to talk to him, not communicate with him, not be in his life, and the stuff he struggles with, having lost his half sister and whatnot. So while he doesn't deal with, I guess, the alcoholic part of it, he's dealt with. He tries not to let it show,
mm,
but every once in a while we'll be like playing a game or something, and he'll be like, "Oh, I used to play this game with Bella all the time,"
mm,
and dude, that like cuts me to my heart, because it's like, as a dad, I don't have any control over him seeing his sister because I have no legal rights to
mm,
ask
mm,
for Belle to come to the house to hang
mm,
out with her brother or anything. And she won't allow it anyways.
mm,
And, how do you tell your 10-year-old son, I'm sorry, dude, but you can't hang out with your sister because your mom won't allow it?
mm,
And, like I've worked so hard not to be the hateful parent and not
mm,
to say bad shit about her and not let that toxic part flow into his life so he doesn't get that, because I don't want him to hate his mom. I don't want him to be
right.
angry at his mother.
Of course not. No.
And she'll say, well, you made him mad at me. No,
Mm,
you blew his family up.
mm,
And then when he asked you why, you literally told him you're just going to have to learn to deal with.
Right.
Like, who the fuck says that to a 9-year-old? Like,
right.
Well, you got so mad you punched a wall. What, you fucking think? Who the fuck says that to a 9-year-old?
Mm.
And then you expect me to stand there and just be like, oh, that's cool.
Right.
Hell no. Like, you know, like, you don't say that to a child, man. You don't do that kind of shit to a child. So that sounds kind of, like I said, on a different level.
Yeah.
You know, I really felt it because of that, I guess, aspect of it, of relating to what kids go through, you know. And I think as adults, we forget that kids aren't dumb. Kids pick up on shit, you know, and you know, I mean, we all had growing up, we all had that aspect of family that we dealt with, and we kind of had to eat it. And whether it was going to record stores, or whether it was going on bike rides, or whether it was through whatever aspect, we kind of just learn to deal with it, you know. And street dance records, I relate, bro. Like, I miss those times of just spending hours in a record store.
Yeah, me too. Just the atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, just going through.
Yeah, because there are not that many stores left that has that atmosphere. And the cool thing about street dance records was, like, I'm super nerdy when it comes to, like, I loved Nintendo as a kid. You know what I mean? Nice. Like, and they had like so the first floor was games and CDs. Okay. So they had like these Super Nintendo games that, you know,
nice,
like Japanese games too, like you'd never seen before. You know what I'm saying? And then they had CDs, and you know, on the bottom floor was all the vinyls. You know what I mean? Just the atmosphere. Spend hours and hours there, you know, and you could try out the games there. You could play the games, and you could listen to music. What's not to like? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So that was heaven, man. You know.
Yeah.
And nowadays, it's, you know, it closed down many years ago, and nowadays it's just a bar. And I went there a couple of years ago with my girlfriend, and we went there, and I told her the story about street dance records, and the guy in the bar was actually really nice. He was like, "Yeah, all right," and we talked about street dance records. It was my favorite store, and he actually showed me around the back of the store. So he showed me around how it looked, and I never saw that before. You know what I'm saying? So I actually got some insight to how all the, you know, how like where everything was stashed in the behind, like, the counter and everything. So that was kind of fun. So nice guy, but it's still, you know, sad to see, like,
I ran a record store for a friend. He owned a record store, and one of the greatest periods of my life is just getting paid to listen to music. Is like, you know, what do? I get paid to listen to music. What do you mean? I run a record store. Well, you got to do more than that, right? Not really. I sit behind the counter, and I just make sure the music is playing for the customers, and I answer questions. And, you know, he had the tattoo shop next door, but he wanted to own a record store. So we had hole in the wall records, and it was a tiny little store. It wasn't very big. You know, it was not much bigger than like what a typical Subway is. But we would special order anything. And, you know, there's something about stores like that, man, that, you know, it was just a different thing. Like,
it's the vibe, it's the atmosphere. You get inspired. You just, you know what I mean? Like, you're surrounded by things you like. You know what I'm saying? Like, you like music, and there are records everywhere. You know, what's not to like? You know, DJ Legal from the GOOOONS, he used to have a record store too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in Germany. So that was before him meeting up with that, and before they formed GOOOONS. Just before that, he had a record store, man. Like, so that was pretty cool. I never got to see it.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I never got to see it though, because I met him later. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I know that he did, so he can probably relate to your story too. So,
so kind of talk about, how did you become a member of GOOOONS? Like, how did that kind of go down? Because GOOOONS has, obviously on the production side, but you guys have like the greatest collection of artists that you work with, man. Vinny Paz, like all of my favorites, dude, like
Mhm.
Vinny, Ill Bill, Diabolic, Nems, like Nems. I laugh at Nems, bro, because Nems, I love Nems. Like Nems is the biggest shit talker in the world, and he does it like he's so good at it, bro. Like it's just it's almost cartoonish, but at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same time, you look at Nems and you know, like Nems is serious. Like Nems
Mhm.
would knock you the fuck out if you mess with him, bro. Like he just has that look of that
Right.
is not someone you'd want to mess with. But
It's similar
dude,
to what I kind of feel it's slightly similar to what Sean Price did. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Sean Price was
yeah,
like
Sean was,
big dude too. He'd knock you out
yeah,
the fuck out, but
yeah.
he had
A
some
lot of
fun.
them would. I know Vinny would. Vinny's a
Yeah.
scrapper. Like and Vinny, dude, there's something about Vinny's voice, bro. Like Vinny has that Scarface type of voice.
Hmm.
Like when you hear it, it's just
Or
cold, bro. Like there's a vibe to Vinny's voice that I don't think anyone else in hip hop has.
right.
Like,
He's hot body, man. He's
yeah, bro. Like Vinny just spits, bro, and does it in a way that I again, you really can't compare Vinny to anybody else, man. Like Vinny just, and he's the only other person, and you were talking about like the fairy tale type
hmm
of storytelling. Like he's the only other person I've really heard kind of do that because he's got a few songs where he kind of has that very personal.
hmm
Uh, I can't think of the
Definitely.
name of the song, but he does the one about his stepdad.
Yeah.
Um, and it's next level, man. And um,
Word.
Chino is another one. Chino XL, like
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody knows Chino's like a goddamn samurai with words. Like,
He's crazy. He's definitely.
yeah. So anyways, you joining Snow Goons. How
Yeah.
did that kind of
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah. Well, GOOONS actually started with DJ Illegal and Det meeting up back in, I think it was '99.
Mm-hmm.
So and they started to work on music, and DJ Legal was a tour manager at the time, and he was driving this tour van with different rappers, and they decided to do like features with these guys while on tour. You know what I mean? And so basically, what happened was I started working with Slane and Ill Bill and them back in 2005 ish, 2006 maybe. I sent beats back and forth to them, and we were talking together. So I went to New York to meet up with Ill Bill because he had a release party. It got postponed though, but I went there still. Um, and there I went to Fat Beats, Fat Beats, which was more or less like the boom bap mecca, if you
Mm-hmm.
will. I mean, it closed sadly like a year after or something, but I
Yeah.
got to see it, so that's dope. Anyways, I went to Fat Beats, and there I saw like these posters of like these Snow Goons posters hanging everywhere, and then I noticed different spots in New York where had like these Snow Goons billboards everywhere. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So yeah, so I was like, who are these guys, man? It's some hip hop stuff, and then I noticed like on one of these posters, it said some of the some of the names of some like that were that I had worked a little bit with too, like Reef the Lost Cause and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Reef's
Because
stupid.
yeah, Reef's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and so basically, Ill Bill and me did a beat for Army of the Pharaohs called Seven of that track, and so that's how I kind of got to know some of these
Yeah.
AOTP guys, and so I knowing that I think a couple months later I opened up for Necro in Copenhagen. I had a show,
Whoa.
so I opened up for Necro, and DJ Illegal was there with Reef. He was DJing for Reef. So
Nice.
basically, me and Reef had heard about each other, and then I didn't really know who DJ Illegal was at the time. And then I went backstage to talk to Reef, and then I met DJ Legal, and we talked a little bit back and forth. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm in Snow Goons," and I'm like, "Hold on, I saw you guys in everywhere in New York," and he was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I saw your name too." And so basically, I gave him my CD, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do some stuff, man. I'm down." So he heard my CD in the car, and he was like, "Oh, normally I don't say this, but your shit is crazy." He told
Yeah.
me that, and he was like, "Yeah, let's definitely do something." And that's basically how I started working with Snow Goons. That was me and DJ Legal started doing stuff together, and then we figured out, like, I think it was like the following year, we found out that, you know, since I MC and he DJs, we could actually do some shows together, and we could represent Snow Goons while doing that. You know what I mean? Like earlier, it was just him on the road, because that is not a DJ or an MC. He only produces. So
Right.
all of a sudden, we were able to do that, you know, to represent Snow Goons and ourselves at the same time. And we started doing that, and then, you know, slowly I just started, you know, sending them beats too, and started producing some of their stuff without me even being in the group like that. I was still just a featured rapper on some of their projects, and then at some point it just became, you know, natural for me to be
Right.
part of the group. So I think this was like in 2010 or 11 or something. We were like, all right, I'm just part of it now. So, you know, we did so much stuff together. It's like
Yeah.
everybody more or less put me in the group without me being in it anyway. So, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how we met, and then we just been steadily going ever since. So we all three of us produce, and there have been some other members too, but they're not really in the group anymore. So it's just me, DJ
Right.
Legal. So we're just three people now, and yeah, man. And as far as like meeting up with different artists and setting the whole feature thing up, that's DJ Legal. That's his full-time job, I would say, man. Like, because
Nice.
it's a lot of work. You know what I mean? Like pushing for her.
The dude is,
Had a lot of features on
yeah.
Snow records and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So
Like,
he's definitely the man behind that, and then all of us just produce like a third each
yeah.
ish on every project. So yeah, man. So that's more or less how we met, man, and we're just good friends now. And Snow Goons has expanded now. There's also Snow Goons DJs now. So DJ Denetic, DJ Crypt, DJ let me see, DJ Denetic, DJ Crypt, DJ 6K are in Snow Goons DJs. You know,
Well,
so yeah, man. It's just everything is so much bigger now, but you know. But yeah, that's more or
I
less how.
am I am taking college courses for audio production and sound engineering, and uh I'm gonna let it be known right now that when I get this shit done and I learn all of these skills, that is like on my agenda. Like, I do nothing else in my life before I die. Like, I want to work with y'all on a song or something, because that would, like, if I do nothing else in my life, that's the number one thing I want on my resume, is that I did a song with Snow Goons, you know. Like, it's just, and
Do it.
I think a lot of people probably would just be like, they don't get why I would say that. But if you look at my hip hop collection, dude, it's literally littered with, you know, everyone that you guys work with. They're all my top 20, my top 50, my top 100, whether it's Reef, whether it's Vinny, whether it's Apathy, Diabolic, Chris Webby, you know, Slain, Ill Bill, it's Sean, you know, Onyx. Every single person that you guys work with are all on my top list. And it's just crazy. Like, you know, I can't name another group or another producer who has that kind of talent that they work with, you know, like.
Oh yeah. By the way, man, I forgot to say, like Snow Goons DJs, I forgot to mention that 2 new members were added not long ago, DJ Trey and DJ TMB. Sorry about that. Yeah, so
No, you're good.
they're 5 DJs now,
Nice.
6 DJs. DJ 6K, DJ Crypt, DJ Donetic, DJ TMB, DJ Legal, and DJ Trey. So I just had to remember everybody, man, because
Yeah.
yeah, sorry about
Another one that he's a newer guy, well, newer-ish to me, and you
Mhm.
work with in a group called Super Kaiju or
Yeah, Super Kaiju.
Kaiju.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit because you work with Napoleon the Legend, and Napoleon kind of came out of nowhere for
Yeah.
me. Like I got a thing one day, and I was like, "Who is this?" And then I heard him and was like, "All right, this dude is
Mhm.
nice,
Yeah.
and he's got that old school flair, but
Mhm.
it's different, man. Like he's got this. I haven't really put my finger on it yet, but like he does the boom bap thing, but he's got his own thing that he's really kind of created for himself. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, man. Yeah. Me and Napoleon, we I heard him at, like, I think it was on Instagram or something. Like there was like a
okay.
short clip with him rapping on a radio show or something. I was like, who's this? He's dope, man. So I can't remember who reached out first. I think it was actually him who reached out to me. And then anyways, I was going to New York and he was living in Brooklyn at the time. So we met up in New York. And, we had a coffee and just were talking, and we basically agreed on doing something, like a project or a song or whatever, and just kept the contact and kept talking. And then I had this idea to do something different because at the time I'd been in Snow Goons for a long time, and I wanted to do something that was just a little bit away from that, but still in the same camp, if you will.
Mhm.
And then we came up with the idea to do Super Kaiju as a group. So it's both me and Napoleon the Legend in the group. So it's more like a duo of me
Mhm.
producing everything. So we did it kind of fast. So yeah, so we did we did that first album, and then we did an EP after that, and then it's been a few years since we did something together. But he's busy, I'm busy, and that's cool.
Right.
We still talk together, and we probably do another one at some point. But yeah, that's Super Kaiju, and I think it came out really great, and I know
Yeah.
that a lot of people here in Denmark, at least, they know Napoleon the Legend because of that. So I'm happy to have been able to open the doors for him being a great MC to a new audience here. So that's just
Yeah.
dope. So but yeah, at the end of the day, shout out to Napoleon. He's definitely a
Yeah.
good dude and a dope MC. So yeah, man.
I respect Napoleon because he's doing a lot with not just the hip hop, but he's using it as a vehicle for positive change, man. The program that he has at Rikers and working with at risk youth, and that's
Yeah,
the kind of shit, man, that sets you apart, not just as a hip hop artist, but as a human being and as a person.
yeah,
To show that
yeah,
you're putting your money where your mouth is.
yeah,
You're not just talking about it, but you're enacting that change that needs to happen. And
yeah, yeah,
this, I
yeah, man.
mean, yeah, like I think part of what it is, he reminds me a lot of KSR1. Like
Okay.
he's got that skill set,
Mm,
but like KSR1, he doesn't just rap about it. He goes out and he does it, like he lives it.
mm,
And that's the two of them. I think that's how I relate them, because they're kind of one of the few that put their money where their mouth is. They just,
mm.
some rappers rap about it
Yeah.
and think that's enough. And then there's those that they go out in the street and
Hmm.
they start programs. And I know Reef has a thing where he works with autistic
Yeah.
kids and all of that because of his son and that. And
Mhm.
again, that's another thing, mad respect for that, because it
Sabak
it's
Red. Sabak Red works with the youth too. Sabak
yeah,
Fiction. Yeah.
I forgot about him. That's a name you don't hear that often.
Yeah. It's because he's not that active at the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
did some great records in the past, and he's part of like one of the biggest groups to ever exist, nonfiction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so.
I,
So
I
yes,
gotta
about
ask, is nonfiction story, is that what it's about, kind of? Is it about nonfiction or?
yeah, it is. It
Oh,
is
okay.
about. It's about. It is about me seeing them live at a festival back in '98, and then later getting to work with them.
Okay.
Like so, it's a song about how you become a fan of something, and then uh, seeing them break up, and then starting working with them, and then all of a sudden they got back together too. So yes, it was just a big deal to kind of be part of some of their journey. You know what I mean? Like it was a blessing. So yeah, man,
Yeah.
I was a big nonfiction fan, and I still am. So,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
of
there's,
all three of them, and
yeah.
and Eclipse too, of course. So yeah, man. So it's just it was just a big deal. So I wanted to do a song about it. You know, actually I was a little bit inspired to do that song because I heard J. Cole do this song uh Let Nas Down. Was it like, I can't believe I let Nas down. How he was a big fan of Nas, and then he heard that Nas didn't like one of his songs, and then he talked about that, and I kind of felt
Okay.
like, you know what, man, like me being a big nonfiction fan and actually doing music with them now,
Right.
I want to talk, I want to tell that story, and so I think it was a big deal for me. It was a big deal for me to be not noticed in the hip hop world, and then all of a sudden I started working with Bill and everybody, and then all of a sudden people started being like, "Oh, all right, cool."
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You know, so
Yeah.
yeah, big deal. So yeah, that a nonfiction story is about that, but it's more than a fan song. It's more of a a personal a
Mhm.
part of my personal story as a
Yeah.
you know yeah yeah
Yeah. To me, it almost kind of strikes me as like almost like a journal entry, kind of
yeah
like if you
yeah.
were like sitting, I guess back in the day, like if you're doing a journal entry,
Hmm.
and that it's kind of what it strikes me as, is just somebody releasing their thoughts for the day. Like this happened today, and I'm gonna write about it, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I'm probably like just completely missing, the point of what the song was, but that's kind
Nah.
of how I took it, because it was, again, it was a more personal song,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
um
It's
I
definitely personal. It's
yeah,
you know, it's. I mean, we all start as fans. Something.
yeah,
We love whether it doesn't matter what type of genre we're in. We all start as fans. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
And for us to actually work with like some of those people that created something that was iconic for us is a big deal. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like um same if you're an actor and you love Star Wars, then all of a sudden you get to work with Harrison Ford. That's a big deal.
yeah,
Or if you're a metalhead and then all of a sudden Lars Ulrich plays drums on one of your songs, it's a big deal. You know what I'm saying? Like
right,
I it's just part of what we want to do when we start working on stuff. We want to at some point you said it yourself, like I want to, like someday I want to do something with Snow Wounds, you know what I'm saying?
right,
Like, and that's because you like our music, and we definitely appreciate that, you know what I mean? Being fans of hip hop ourselves, we totally get that, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, man, I think also like there's something humbling about telling a story about you being a fan, and then all of
yeah,
a sudden you get to work with somebody that you were a fan of. It's
yeah,
very down to earth in a way, And if you
yeah,
listen to a lot of hip hop, you know that a lot of hip hop has a lot of braggadocio about like, oh, I'm this
yeah,
and that good, or I'm better than this and that, and just to have like a humble story about, well, I was a fan. Now I got to work with these people. That's great. I want to let people know how dope that is.
yeah,
I think it's very down to earth and very human in a way. So I think that's why I did it. So
yeah. Like I've said so many times on the show, in interviews, this is very surreal to me, because as as someone who grew up in the 70s and the 80s, laying on my bed as a kid and as a teenager with walls covered in posters of everyone from Kiss to, Prince, AC/DC. I haven't really changed. It's just, the posters are better now. I have got to interview some of my biggest heroes, my biggest influences. And at no point at 12 or 13 years old did I ever dream that I could buy a microphone and sit on a program and talk to Vinny Paz, that I could talk to KSR1, that I could talk to Steve Souza from Exodus, that I could talk to the guys from Night Ranger, that I could talk to the guys from, I've interviewed Steve Earle, David Allen Coe. At no point could you have told me that I would do that one day.
Right.
Because back in the day, at most, you could write a fan letter, send it to the fan club, and you might get an autographed picture back.
Right.
And now I'm sitting here and I do this, and it's still, there's that fanboy in me that has to really choose my words carefully, because, when I get to interview someone that I've listened to for 40 years, 30 years, and I know everything about them, I don't want to freak them out by saying, hey, tell me about this weird, rare EP you put out in 1978. And then they kind of look at you like, okay, you might be, you might be the only fucking person on earth that actually has that,
Yeah.
So you kind of have to temper that. But
yeah,
dude, I love where technology has gone. I love the fact that there are no boundaries anymore.
Right.
When I started this, my college professor, the first thing they asked is, what is your goal? And my exact words were, I want to be the new Rick Rubin. Why Rick Rubin? Because Rick doesn't play by any rules.
Right.
He goes, what do you mean? I said, the guy's worked with Johnny Cash. He's worked with Slayer. He's worked with Run DMC. He's worked with the Beastie Boys. He's worked with Kelly Clarkson. He's worked with Celine Dion. I want to be that dude. Like, no matter what you bring to me, I'm going to make it sound good. I don't care if it's hip hop, metal, punk, pop. I want to put my mark on it and know that I did a great job on it, and that's the thing with me. Like, I love all music, and I love that there are artists, DJs, hip hop artists out there that are just throwing the rules out the window.
Right.
And saying, Gangsta Grass, for example. The first time I heard Gangsta Grass, I didn't know what to think, because who the fuck would think to mix Wu-Tang style hip hop with bluegrass? Like, that shouldn't work. It just shouldn't. But you listen to it, and Wrench has created the most unholy sound. And the guy won a fucking Emmy for it. I mean, he wrote the theme song for Justified. So that's amazing. I love that. I love the fact that there are guys like you that you don't play by the rules, and you're willing to mix in elements that a normal person would say that shouldn't work, or you can't mix this and this. Rubin, when he started, I'm sure people told him when he did Walk This Way, you can't mix Run DMC and Aerosmith. You can't mix Public Enemy and Anthrax. You can't mix anything that the Beastie Boys did. Basically was not even, like, I'm sure record executives were probably pulling their hair out the entire time that Rick Rubin was creating the Beastie Boys or doing that.
You're right about that.
Like, I mean, I can imagine record executives were like, this is never going to work. We're going to lose all our money on this.
Right.
And you had, not Rap a Lot, but, oh, God damn it, I can't think of the label. I can't even get the label out of New York.
What, Def Jam?
No, the one who had like the pun in
Loud?
yeah,
Loud.
you know,
Okay.
like they were one of the labels that one of the first labels that really started really being unconventional, you know, because they allowed artists to they did that one record where they had the metal bands working with the hip hop artists. You know, they
Oh,
had like
oh yeah,
Exhibit
yeah.
and
Was that? Oh, what was that? Was that a soundtrack? It was
it,
with
it, it,
by
it
Acid and Onyx and them and
yeah, like they kind of labeled it
Judgment
as
Night.
that, but
It was Judgment Night, the soundtrack, right?
well, it was after that. They did Judgment Night was really the first, you know, soundtrack for it, but Loud Records, they did like a Loud, I can't think of what they called it, but they had like Big Pun and um
Hmm.
I don't like the band that they pun with, but it ended up
Okay.
working really well. But they had a bunch of they had like Exhibit and um Crazy Town together. They mixed like Butterfly and LA Story, I think, by Exhibit together, and they were doing this crazy sampling shit with it. And again, it was like 97, 98, so it was still
Hmm.
that new metal was
Yeah.
huge at the time, so they were mixing new metal and the hip hop stuff, and
Hmm.
it it was just an unconventional
Hmm.
style that they were creating.
Yeah.
I loved it because as a metalhead and as a hip hop fan, it was like the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
you know. And Biohazard, you know, when I hear Biohazard, kind of the same thing. You know, here's a band that they're just chucking the rules out. They're like, fuck it, we're gonna play hip hop, we're gonna play punk, we're gonna play metal, and we're gonna do it all at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, in Fishbone,
Yeah.
you know, if you've ever heard Fishbone, bro, like, come on,
Hmm.
Fishbone is never fucking played by the rules, you know. Um, so
Oh,
yeah. Um, as always, so far off track, I don't even know where I'm at now. Um,
it doesn't matter,
where
man.
do where do people find you on social media? Where do they find the paintings of a withering forest? Um, especially
Uh,
like if it's on vinyl and whatnot, where do they find that?
it's not on vinyl.
Oh, okay.
But it's on all streaming services. You can find it everywhere, from Spotify to Apple Music to Tidal, whatever you want to use.
Mhm.
So it's everywhere. And on social media, it's just youtube.com/real Sicknature, instagram.com/real Sicknature. You can go to signaturemusic.com if you want to check out my website. And other than that, I'm part of Snowgoons, snowgoons.de. And yeah, man, just we everywhere.
Also, for those of you, we mentioned it, SUPAKAIJU, Super Kaiju.
With kaiju.
Um, yes. I always say that wrong.
Yeah,
Um, and for those of you that are not geeky people, Kaiju basically is Godzilla. So, um,
something like that. Yeah.
yeah, like it's the proper name for a Godzilla is Kaiju. So,
big
um,
big monster. Yeah.
yeah, something along that lines. But dude,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on here and letting me ramble and
Hey,
kind of
man,
fanboy out and just
bro, thank you so much for having me. It's
yeah,
been like I wish we would just continue like this for hours, man. Like
yeah, like that's the thing. Like sometimes it's hard to this kind of wind it down
yeah.
because like when I interviewed the singer of Exodus,
Hmm?
everything I know about metal
Yeah.
kind of started and ended at Exodus as a teenager.
Yeah.
So I did this interview with a country artist,
Hmm.
and the country guy says, "Hey, are you a fan of Exodus?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah." He's seen the poster that I had behind me, and he goes, "Do you want to interview the singer?" And I was like, "Yeah, like, but I don't know who to contact." And he goes, "Hang out at home for a minute." He's like, and I was like, "Okay, whatever." I thought he was blowing smoke up my ass. about 15 minutes later, my phone rings and he goes, "Hey, can I talk to CJ?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess this is." And he's like, "Hey, this is Zitra from Exodus." And I was just like, "Oh, whoa." And dude, we talked for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Just, he's a bigger fanboy than I am, you know, and just, we talked about AC/DC and going to concerts and growing up during that era, and, you know, stories about going to Lollapalooza and Monsters of Rock and shit that were shared experiences because we're the same age, you know. And again, you could have never told 12-year-old me laying on my bed staring at this fucking 6-foot poster of Exodus, Toxic Waltz, that I would sit for 3 hours talking to that dude who everything I know vocally starts and ends at his style, you know. It was so fucking surreal. And 5 years later, I still think about that. And I was like, holy shit. Yeah. I interviewed Zitro from fucking Exodus, you know, and the dude's a legend.
Yeah.
And
man, that's crazy.
Like, yeah. So I don't take this shit for granted, dude. And again, like I said, thank you for taking time out of your day to you know.
Hey man, anytime, if you ever want to do this again, just, you have my contact info.
Yeah, we will definitely do it again for sure, because I still got a few things that I'm leaving on the table so that we don't talk, you know, for 6-7 hours. Because I really kind of wanted to get into the, you know, we'll kind of end it with this. If you could give one piece of advice, I guess, to someone wanting to be a new producer, say a 52-year-old white guy who has decided that he wants to learn to be a record producer.
All right.
What would that advice be? Like, where should they start as far as programs and equipment?
Okay. All right.
Again,
all right. I will give what I believe is the right advice. I think that somebody else might probably give a different advice, but my advice would be this: try out some different software, figure out what you're comfortable with, and roll with. Because nowadays, I don't think that I don't think it's going to sound better with different software necessarily. Like, all softwares as far as music production is good now. It's easier now to produce, but it's not easy to do like what you want to do if you're not comfortable in the software. So that would be my first advice. My second advice would be what you said: don't play by the rules. Do what you want to do. Break the rules if you have to. That's what I try to do. It also has some costs, because nowadays I'm very in I think in a lot of people's minds, I'm very attached to the boom bap genre, and being so melodic, I kind of break away from that a little bit, but I still have my foot in the door, if you will. And I think some people really love that because it's different, but some people just want, the regular stuff, the braggadocio stuff. And so there's a cost with everything. But these are the stories I want to tell. This is what I want to do. I've been wanting to do an album like this for a long time. So, and it kind of taught me, it makes me more comfortable with the catalog I leave behind. So on that note, I think it's very important not to play by any rules at all. Like, just do whatever you want to do. If you want to do metal one day and you want to do hip hop the next, it's whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like, I played played around with a little bit of metal too. The guitarist on the Dynamite Harry song is a metal guitarist. He's really dope. Dennis Post. He's been in different groups. Like, he's probably one of the best metal guitarists in Denmark, in my opinion. So yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I grew up on heavy metal too. So I know what you're coming from. I was introduced to heavy metal as at a young age. And then later, when I became a teenager, I was introduced to hip hop. So I had metal in my Walkman. I say Walkman because it was cassette tape. Like many years from I was 5 till I was, I don't know, 12, and I still listen to metal. You know what I mean? So
yeah, like I grew up I grew up on country and southern rock.
Mhm.
In 1983, my dad got pissed off at me because I did some boneheaded teenage dumb shit, and he sent me to LA to live with my mom.
Okay.
And my mom lived 3 blocks off of Sunset Strip. So in
Okay.
1983, I lived in a condo 3 blocks off of Sunset Strip as Motley Crue and LA Guns and Hollywood Rose and all of those bands were exploding.
Wow.
And I was dead in the center of all of that. And then I went back to Michigan, and Prince and Shaka Khan and Rick Springfield and all of those bands
Mm.
started blowing up. And then a cousin come along and he's like, man, you got to hear this punk band. And then I got into New York punk.
Mhm.
And then I went to college, and I got this college roommate, and he was this black dude. His name was TV. Um, that was that was his nickname. That's the only name we ever knew him by. And he's like, dude, you got to hear this dude named Ice-T. And he threw, the Ice-T thing at me. And I was like, whoa. Then it was Public Enemy, and then it was X-Clan, and then it was Paris, and then and it just went from there. And I've gone through these phases to where now at 52, I got 4 million songs in my music collection, 100 genres from probably 75 countries.
Mm.
And people, how do you have this stupid knowledge of music? Because I've been fortunate to know and work with people that have introduced me, and I've always kept an open mind.
Yeah.
I've refused to limit myself to one genre, because
Right.
music is emotions.
Mhm.
Sometimes you want to party, sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're happy, sometimes you want to break shit.
Right.
And there's music for all of it.
Right.
Sometimes you want to just sit in your car in your driveway and bob your head, and there's music for that.
Right.
Plastic Sun, for example. So
But just imagine having a time machine, being able to go back to the mid '90s. I
dude,
know it wasn't all good back then. I know there was a lot of bullshit.
no,
But the music scene and like that.
yeah.
Like
Like, I'm fortunate to say I have sat at the Rainbow Bar and Grill, and I've talked to Lemmy. Lemmy was amused because I was a 14-year-old kid sitting on a bar stool next to him.
Mhm.
He's sitting there with a Jack and a Coke playing his slot machine that he played, and I'm asking him questions, and he's looking at me like, who the fuck are you and why are you in here? Like, you're 14, you shouldn't be in the Rainbow Bar and Grill. But I was a street kid, I conned my way in there, and I told him, I'll sweep floors, mop floors, whatever. The dude needed someone to clean the toilets, so I cleaned the toilets. And I was taking a break, and I seen Lemmy, and I was, fuck it, I'm gonna sit down here and just start talking, and he'll either tell me to shut the fuck up or go away.
Yeah.
And he was cool, like, if you've heard the stories about Lemmy was the god, and I think he, like I said, he was probably more amused than anything, because he probably didn't know why a 14-year-old kid was sitting next to him while he was playing a slot machine. But I've been very fortunate with this. So with that said, as always, we're gonna wrap this up by me saying what I always say: be well, treat each other with kindness, and remember that no matter what you're going through, music heals.